Welcome back to Sunday Vibes. Warren and we're back in the Phoenix pub by Oxford Circus. It is me, Chris, and Pat coming to your screens. Is this a new cardigan, Patrick?
Yeah, we've. You and I look like we're at a parent-teacher evening. I'm about to tell your parents you've been a very naughty boy.
Probably. Oh, that sounded slightly wrong. Is that new? No, you've worn that on previous shows.
I have worn it on previous shows. This was a Christmas present.
I thought it was.
One of the few things that, didn't need ironing this morning, so cobbed it on. Big fan of that jumper.
Thank you.
What people won't appreciate at home, in the spirit of, we're all being weirdly nice to each other, your shoes match your cardigan.
Ooh.
So well
They
done.
do.
You look very autumnal.
I'm liking the new style from
feeling
you
it.
recently.
Thank you very much.
I saw the woolly hat recently, very, very much suited you.
We're all being so nice.
Yeah,
to
we
each
are.
other.
Let's get into each
But
other
thank
now
you,
because I've had
appreciate
enough.
You guys,
Way
let's
too
start
nice.
this,
Yeah. Anyway, today we are talking about mistakes clubs are going to be making this January window.
Yes.
Because there are a lot of them bubbling under the surface.
Big ones already happening.
Yes, there are some massive ones happening already. Where do we want to start? Because people have submitted suggestions here, haven't they? As usual, we're kind of going to go through and analyse fan suggestions.
Yeah, and I do want to say we have picked teams that we didn't necessarily talk about last week.
Yeah.
There were some comments from Villa fans, from Liverpool fans that were very
guys.
disappointed we didn't include them in last week's Sunday
You're in.
Vibes. But we have to rotate.
They're
We'll
never
have
happy.
people to talk about.
Yes.
Yeah, just
Villa
enjoy your
fans are
free
never happy.
content.
And they're in today, so let's start with Liverpool.
Okay.
Okay.
Because they are a big topic, aren't they? And the mistake that a lot of the fans returning to your tweet were saying is not signing a midfielder. Because they've got Gakpo through the door at £38 million. But the midfield issue still hasn't been addressed, guys.
Yeah,
Should
and
it be addressed in
is-
January?
It's a sizable issue, isn't it? And when you look at the underlying numbers, you know what they don't scream? Liverpool making it back into the top four at current. Let me reel some off for you with regards to the midfield. I mean, from some of the surface level numbers, okay, only conceding 10 shots per 90. I think that is the third best record in the league at current. But only 5 teams, Patrick, you will be loath to hear, have a worse expected goals against.
Really?
So when they are giving up chances,
I love hearing
they
that.
are giving up huge
They're 15th
ones.
in the league for expected
Yeah.
goals against. What's happened there?
Hey, if you like that, you'll love this. In fact, Klopp's side have conceded 51 big chances by Opta's definition. And across 17 Premier League games, only Leeds and Fulham have a worse record in that regard.
What's happened there?
So,
What's happening
some
there?
goalkeeping
Unlike
errors,
Leeds,
some
though, right?
defending
You can see
errors. Yeah.
Leeds are pressing really. Basically, in the old days when we started seeing teams like pressing and started getting fancy stats around them, what we saw with pressing sides is they concede a few shots, but really high quality shots, and the shots.
Shots.
Excellent.
Not inaccurate.
Shot
And I think that the quality of shot against Liverpool this season is the highest in the league. So I think it's about 0.14 xg. So it put in simple terms, each shot agast Liverpool has a 14%.
Are we
But
blaming
strangely,
Harry on the midfield?
but Pat,
Is that only the midfield?
Yeah, because I think they break through and they're up against the back line really quickly.
Their
Right?
PPDA, their passes per defensive action, has dropped, so they're not pressing as intensely. I think they are 7th in the Premier League now for passes per defensive action. They used to be first, second, third, didn't they? When they were held to leather, sort of styly, but yeah, being cut to ribbons on the counter. And that does sort of point towards a lack of physicality, mobility in midfield, doesn't it? They've conceded 4 goals on account of this season. Previous 2 campaigns, 1 each campaign.
Yeah,
Funny.
you'd have to say that
Funny.
It does feel like there's been a definite sort of gear change in, I don't know what, maybe it's what Klopp wants from his midfield or the way the midfield is operating when you've got Thiago and Elliott in there. Because I still think they rank second in the league, don't they, for possession behind Manchester City, second behind Man City for shots.
They're still good on the ball.
So on the ball, absolutely fine. And I wonder whether
Their
that
attack is still third best, I think.
Is
as well.
that
I mean,
a deliberate ploy by Jurgen Klopp to maybe shift away from this sort of held to leather pressing athletes in midfield, and he maybe is moving towards a slightly more technical midfield, which was what anybody watched Jamie Carragher talking about on, was it Super Sunday or a Monday Night Football a couple of weeks ago, where he was saying maybe the influence of Pep Lijnders behind the scenes has seen a slight shift. It's hard to kind of quantify that, I suppose, isn't it? Because we don't get to sit in on coaching sessions, we don't get to sit in on behind the scenes, but it definitely feels like they're less athletic in midfield.
Yeah, well, you've got to ask what is the aim of that shift then, because if it is to gain more control over a game owing to their lack of physicality, if they want to use players who are good on the ball that little bit more, it's not really working at current, is it?
but I don't even think I don't think that really tells a good enough story. I don't think it has enough explanatory power, because the first half of 2022, so the back half of last campaign, the football they played was as good as any football we've seen from Liverpool. And they actually dialed the press back and played a more conservative style during the season they won the title. I think that part of that was Klopp kind of being careful after the lockdown, not wanting to come back and really overtax his players. So it's not like these are kind of unprecedented events, and it's not like this has been just a steady slip downstream. Like, it feels like a bunch of things have sort of gone wrong all at the same time. And it's all coming at the point as well where there seems to be like a huge shift in their recruitment strategy.
Yeah, although over the last 3 years, their pressing numbers, their distance covered, all of those, I saw a quite revealing graph online from the 1920 season that season on season it has been in steady decline.
But there's no correlation between distance covered and like winning. But there is
successful pressures in a Liverpool team that have built a success off the back of high level turnovers.
To a degree they have, but they won the title in 2020, not in 17-18. In 17-18 they were a much higher pressing side. So there's no necessary.
Does that point towards a side
that is Wijnaldum and Hendo though in that as the two midfielders.
Points towards a side that's aging together, right, and maybe dwindling on that front. I think the most played midfield this season has been Elliott, Fabinho, Thiago, right? And I think Thiago's quietly having a very solid season. And what we're seeing from Elliott, and it's pronounced because Trent Alexander-Arnold is behind him, is that he's far too easy to get past, and teams are keying onto that right flank, aren't they, of Liverpool's as an easy means to progress the ball, to get into dangerous areas and to test them. I had a look at some FBref numbers last night. Elliott and Trent Alexander-Arnold together have been dribbled past 26 times, and when you compare that to their counterparts in the top four, who play right back, right centre mid, even like three players together, I think it was Spurs, I put a tweet out, go and have a look if you're interested, that's substantially more than anyone else. And it's quite reductive analysis because, that not everyone's played the same minutes, not everyone plays the same system, but when you're being beaten that easily, it'd be stupid for opposition coaches to not go, let's try and work it down there. So I do think they need to bring more defensive stability down that side. Like, Elliott's doing a bunch of good stuff on the ball. I don't want to be hypercritical of him. He's young. He's playing in a strange position for his skill set. But I think it would be like a dereliction of duty not to try and address this right-hand side in January. Otherwise, I can't see them sort of powering into the top four. It's just too easy to beat.
They've been slightly unfortunate as well with the seeming drop-off of Fabinho's form this season.
That's been the key issue.
Yeah, where once upon a time he was, ground-covering monster. When Trent went forward, he would slot into that right-back role, clean everything up. I think he was nicknamed the Hoover, wasn't he? By
Dyson, yeah.
By Jurgen Klopp. And that's kind of just stopped overnight almost. And he has had injuries. And, he's 30 now, is he?
29,
29. So it is going to happen eventually. Yeah. And I think Liverpool's preparation for midfield has been the bigger issue. Like, they've been able to see Gini Wijnaldum left now, a season and a half ago. Jordan Henderson, they've been able to see is kind of aging out of that role. James Milner is aging out of that role. Fabinho, his numbers are at the lowest they've been defensively at any point in his senior career, I think. So they should have planned for this role, and it feels a little bit like they need more than one centre mid.
But I think they did. I think they thought they had a really good shot at getting Tchouaméni, and when they missed out on him, they knew they couldn't get one of their top targets. They could have a
backup to Tchouaméni if you don't get him.
Maybe. Only if that guy's available. Point. You don't just go and drop that on somebody else when you think maybe the next summer they might have thought, okay, we could get Rice or Bellingham or someone like that.
But if they then miss out Bellingham, do they not have a backup for him either?
Well, I imagine that they will do this summer because they know that top four is now in play, whereas before it wasn't. I think they just saw a chance to get Tchouaméni. When they didn't get him, they thought, okay, we'll run with this for another year because we've spent a fortune on Darwin Núñez. And they thought, right, we'll rebuild the front line and we'll hope the midfield lasts another year. And they got unlucky in that it hasn't. But they've also got unlucky in a bunch of other ways. They've conceded from their first shot against in, I think, 8 Premier League games this season. That's crazy stuff. Even for a great team, that's hard to recover from. And there's nothing there that's about team quality. That's just bad luck.
Yeah, but they've also gone 1-0 down in 11 consecutive games. And I think that is poor strategizing.
No, but I think that's because a lot of the time the first shot of the game has gone in. I don't really know what you do about that. Sometimes the first shot of the game is a great shot.
Yeah, but if that happens 11 times in a row, surely there is methodology to be saying
the first shot. It's not like they're conceding.
Much more defensive. No,
but it's not like they're conceding a lot of shots early on. They're not conceding a lot of shots, as Chris has said. They're not conceding a lot of shots. It's that the shots going in.
But is that not game state?
It's that the shots going in. Yeah, but that sucks. I'm saying that's bad luck, and that is. I don't really think there's any explanation for that except for bad luck.
And a fair amount of not an unprecedented amount, but a fair amount of defensive errors as well, playing it out from the back like Gomez hasn't.
Alisson.
Van Dijk haven't been in their best form this season, have they? But just to bring it back to Fabinho, it's quite interesting looking at his numbers that tackling's still fine, but his interceptions have dropped off. The way he's not progressing play enough for someone that sits at the base of midfield, in the heart of that midfield. I think his progressive passes below league average puts him in the bottom 47%. And I sort of arrived at the conclusion, wanted to ask you, Per, if he's not doing the defensive stuff to an elite level, then is he justifying his position in a midfield that wants to compete for titles? Because the other side of his game looks quite average.
I think, though, the issue...
and that's not to underestimate what he's done in previous seasons, which has been... I put him forward as one of the best defensive midfielders in the world, time and time again.
I think the issue there, though, is that there simply isn't a backup at the club for him, is there? There's no depth there. You know, Jordan Henderson, I think, was he 60% of available minutes this season. Naby Keita's put up less than 100 minutes this season. Curtis Jones has not kicked on from where we were expecting him to be a couple of seasons ago. So if you don't have him, it's like...
no one else is doing that job. But that brings me to my next question. Do you think it needs to be one midfielder or two? Are we looking for right centre mid and possibly someone to challenge Fabinho at CDM?
I think two, and I think that's the reason that they made a mistake not having a backup to Tchouaméni, because it should have been Tchouaméni and someone, but it seemingly was just Tchouaméni.
You need to not hit the table.
I need to sorry. It was just Tchouaméni in the pipeline, and if they miss out on Bellingham and they miss out on Enzo, and Enzo goes to Chelsea and Bellingham goes to City, it's like Rice is no guarantee.
No.
Declan Rice might go to Arsenal
I agree,
United.
But I still think in this January window, I'd look for a loan or look for a cheap prospect rather than a big move. I think you have to keep your powder dry for a bigger move. And
so
I
you
still
wouldn't drop money on Caicedo, or
if you think that if he was a guy you were going to target anyway, and maybe he's going to cost 10 or 15 mil more now, then sure, by all means, go and spend that extra money. But if he's a guy who you think you can get now, and that's why you're targeting him, then I don't think that that's what you should be doing at all. Because the moves they've made here they haven't gone and got the finished article. Like Hakpo is actually, in a lot of ways, quite raw. Like very low pass completion percentage. The ball kind of goes in and shots come out and high value passes come out. But when it comes to the Premier League, that might mean a little bit of wastefulness. Darwin Núñez, I don't need to talk about how raw he is. So they've gone away from an attack which was really this finely oiled machine, and they're trying to build a different sort of side.
Yeah.
Well, I think with that in mind, you need to be making long-term moves for a side that can kind of build together rather than a short-term move that you think can just be a sticking pass. Now, don't get me wrong, they need to try and finish in the top 4 this season, but I still think with Klopp and a lot of the players there and the money they could pay, I still think that they'll have a lot of pull. What? So I wouldn't do anything really foolish.
What about somebody like Yuri Tielemans, who we know is available on a free?
I mean, should we move on to some of the targets we've kind of sounded out? Because like you pointed out, Henderson, Keita, Jones, Milner, Arthur, all either out of contract, injured, unfavoured, which means that, and while I appreciate that, going for long-term targets like Bellingham, like I said, is absolutely the sort of right move. They do need some short-term fixes, don't they? And clearly FSG have sounded out that sort of box-to-box profile. It's at the forefront of their thinking. Like you said, missed out on Tchouaméni, long-time admirers of Bellingham. The Mateus Nunes move made a lot of sense before he went to Wolves. It's come back, bizarrely. Now he's playing okay at Wolves, but they'd have to pay a premium to prize him away from the Black Country now, wouldn't they?
Unless there's a clause in there, because he only joined for 50 million euros in the summer, didn't he?
Yeah. According to, I saw in the Caught Offside pod, they made like overtures for Benacer, but then he signed a new contract recently to 2027, hasn't he? Although allegedly €50 million release clause in his contract, so he might be an interesting option.
I don't think that release is open this summer. I think it's the one.
2024. Yeah, it's 2024. You're right. But yeah, just to go back to Tielemans, because I did think of him as an option. I suppose Tielemans, if you bring him in, instant upgrade on someone like Harvey Elliott on that right hand side, can bring a level of defensive solidity while not sacrificing all that good passing going forward. But I agree, it doesn't feel like the long-term play here, which is why for some of my sort of budget options, I've already put forward Rabiot. I've maybe put Benjamin Andre at Lille. His contract is up this summer. He can do a bunch of defensive work, which means maybe Thiago can push on a little bit. Kessié at Barcelona has started 2 league games so far. Maybe a 6-month loan with a little fee might be enough to prize him away from Barcelona. These are the sort of 6-month moves I'm thinking about. What about you, boys?
I wouldn't. Tielemans is a good target as, like, say, a Hendo replacement. I actually think their skill sets are fairly similar, but I would prioritise someone who can play as a 6 right now. I mean, obviously Thiago can play there as well, but that would be what I think about, because I think what we've discussed here, I think we all agree that is really, really the problem area. They can do all sorts of things in the attack. They can drop Elliott. They can just put in another midfielder. They can do what they want, but that 6 role is such an issue right now.
So and that's with Thiago doing so much defensive work as well.
and he always has done. And actually Trent doing more defending than in the past, you know, and reasonably active centre-backs. But they could look at Kouadio Kone, who is really press resistant, like really interesting passer from the base of midfield. He's only 21, been playing well in the Bundesliga, good defensive numbers as well. He's someone supposedly Arsenal are looking at as a potential party backup in the long term. That's the right sort of profile, I'd have thought. And then there are people, of course, like Caqueret at Lyon, who at some point is going to have to go to a bigger club because it's absolutely enormous progressive passing numbers. I think he's at like 9 passes into the final third. This is completely taking over for Bruno Guimaraes. 9 passes into the final third. Huge defensive actions, generally over 5. Someone like that. Or another kind of player, Enzo Lefebvre. Enzo Lefebvre is also a kind of like a little tricky midfielder. But I mean, there are a ton of these guys
options that drop into the long-term category.
But they are playing well now. They're not guys who you look at their numbers and you're like, well, maybe if he could develop this or maybe if he could develop that. They are at least putting those numbers up in big leagues right now. And as we've seen from Liverpool's moves over the last couple of years, they are willing to take a risk on a player from a weaker league who's putting up those big numbers. They've done it with Hakpo, they've done it with Nunez. In the past, they did it with Naby Keita. So those kind of moves, somebody who you know can be at least a contributor now and in the future could be a star contributor, that is probably what I'd target.
Yeah, because I feel like they are gearing up for a massive move when it comes to Bellingham or Declan Rice in the summer.
It's a risk,
my thinking is much more short term than that, and much more who can we get for 10 to 15 to really keep us in the frame for Champions League football this season. And that is why I went to Rabiot, and he's not a sexy name, and he is quite a pragmatic player. And I was supportive of when Manchester United were making moves for him in the summer.
Is he a Klopp player?
He profiles
Rabiot?
like Caicedo. I think I don't know. I think it's quite lazy now to be like he will disrupt the harmony behind the scenes.
It has been his whole career, though.
Yeah, but he's also played 3,000 minutes in the last 3 seasons on the bounce, or over 2,500. He built bridges with Didier Deschamps. So there's clearly like a level of, after falling out with him at international level, bringing it, and now he's an integral part of that team. So there's clearly like a level of strong level of professionalism there. He's always available. He's always fit.
He was rejecting £250,000 a week from United, so
and you've got to deal with his mum.
£300 a week to free agent.
Yeah, but that is an issue. But Juventus at the moment have a surplus of midfielders, although he is still getting regular game time. Maybe he would cost a lot wage-wise, but I do think he could be dropped into that midfield and remedy an awful lot of issues.
I agree.
The skill set, I think he's exactly the right kind of thing.
He doesn't align with like my idea of Klopp's signings, which is massively to do with character and like I don't know.
Yeah,
he's been a problem. He has been a problem.
And also, even as you said before, you know, okay, Thiago's been great this season, but Thiago I think is 32 now. Fabinho's 29, and we don't know if he's going to get back to his previous level. Harvey Elliott is never going to be a central midfielder. That's clearly not what he is. Naby Keita, I think, have they re-upped him, or they're trying to re-up him, but they haven't done it yet, I don't think. Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain, is he out of contract this summer?
Yeah.
I think he is. So, and Henderson is pretty much gone. Milner is pretty much gone. So it's not like if they go and get Bellingham or Rice, the midfield is sorted.
Get one of these
they
guys,
need another midfielder one way or another. So if they get Tielemans on a free and Bellingham or Rice, then great. But if they get Bellingham or Rice and they don't do something like that, they are going to need another guy. And I think there are actually central midfield. I think is quite a fun area to recruit right now. I think there's a lot of talent around.
So like we said, let's not, we're trying to decide on one key target here, when ideally two is probably needed. Two and a bit of compromise with one of those players.
I agree
is necessary.
with the assertion. I don't think they're going to sign a midfielder.
They might loan
I
someone.
think that will be
There is a
mistake.
feeling, a strong feeling bubbling under the surface amongst the fans that that's it. Gakpo is the winter business done.
I agree, would be a mistake. Should we move on to Aston Villa?
Yeah, sure.
Because we obviously didn't speak about them in much detail last week. And
Hold on. I've got some wild cards for you that I think might put the cat
Okay.
amongst the pigeons for Liverpool.
Okay, good.
What do you think to someone like Conor Gallagher?
No.
What do you think?
Very Naby Keita-ish, Conor Gallagher.
Do you think to Locatelli?
Yeah, great. But if you can get Locatelli, get Locatelli. I'd say that to anyone.
Take advantage of the uncertainty around Juve right now.
Same goes for Arsenal. Same goes for Chelsea. Same goes for everyone.
These might be summer moves as opposed to winter. Whenever I've watched Jacob Ramsey, I've always quite fancied him for a Jurgen Klopp Liverpool side.
I just think it's a different profile of what they need.
All right, shouldn't have
more
bothered with that
attacking.
section. Let's
I
just
think
move
he's-
on to Villa.
I think he's better in attacking areas, Jacob Ramsey, and it does take us nicely on to Villa, talking about Jacob
There we go.
Ramsey. Colm, from the Discord, by the way, link in the description below, says that he's worried, or the biggest mistake will be being too hesitant to replace signings that haven't worked out, like Leon Bailey, not maximising the talent from their academy is also another suggestion. I mean, what's gone on with Leon Bailey?
He's only been there 18 months.
It's not worked though, is it?
I know, but
His
like
numbers are shambolic.
But Villa were not good really at any point that he's been there, or at least not when he was playing. Like, I mean, when he says, "Oh, they've shown a lack of willingness to move on from him," I'm not sure I'd put him in that category. I'd say they actually persisted with bad centre backs or bad central midfielders a lot longer. And it does now look like they're making important changes. You know, like just playing Buendia over Coutinho is a good thing. Looks like they want to get rid of Luca Dean. They want to get rid of Coutinho. I think those would be good things. I would keep Leon Bailey in the squad because I still think he's a useful squad member to have.
And I don't think there's a return there.
It's just not a key. It's just not a key change that needs to be made. Like, I think they can upgrade at left back. I think they can add another
They've just
central
bought Alex
midfielder.
Moreno from Real Betis.
Is he good? I mean, maybe he's good.
He's much more
I don't know.
defensively sound than someone like Luca Digne. Luca Digne, when you look at his profile, he looks like excellent wing back, maybe a little bit sus in a 4, and that's not going to float with Unai Emery, is it? He doesn't want his fullback in a 4-4-2 to be a flying, attack-minded fullback, and Moreno very much comes under the umbrella of solid. But yeah, Leon Bailey, I think it's 8 goals and assists in 35 Premier League games. Not all of them starts. Shakes out to about 0.39 goals and assists. It's just disappointing that it's come down from the dizzying heights of 0.7 in his last season at Bayer Leverkusen, and he is one of those players, like speedy, tricky winger who's prime. I don't know, does it extend much further beyond like 27, 28? They needed to really maximise that asset when they got him, and at the minute it's looking like
But he
money
was
down the
scuppered by
drain.
injuries as well. I think like the injury
exactly.
problem was a major issue for them when he first bedded in, and it's almost to me now there's now no value to Leon. Like, who picks him up at value? I think you've got to ask Emery to improve him as an asset before you can sell him. You've got to ask him to get that output back up to a reasonable level where he'll have suitors at least on the continent. Because at the moment you look at the suitors for a player like Leon Bailey, who came in for 32 million euros, which is a big old fee.
For like upper mid-table Italian side.
I can't see him. So
On loan at Fiorentina.
Plus,
I think
if his
he's a better
numbers
option to have as a backup.
and if his numbers have been consistent all along, and his fitness had been good all along, then Villa don't get him.
Yeah.
You know, they got him because there were these kind of small worries about his game. I don't know. I mean, we could talk about Leon Bailey, but it just
He's
doesn't-
not the issue. But
I
I think
agree. It's just not an issue.
But he's a good conduit to talk about the other issues. And like you said, some of the signings that Gerrard made not looking great at all right now are the Coutinho, Dendonka for another 15.
I have no idea why they did that.
I don't know who Morgan Sanson was signed by. Was that Dean Smith signing?
Not sure.
But that's like
I thought it was like
50,
January,
60 million pounds worth of midfielder right there that they're probably looking to shift right away. We don't know what's going to happen with Danny Ings. We discussed him a little bit last week, didn't we? But like Jan Bednarak, Callum Chambers, that squad needs thinning down and upgrading.
Bednarak's only on loan, I think, isn't he?
Yeah.
You're going to go back.
Yeah, but
there's
there's
a bit of
And at least
Can
Chambers
that, won't
covers 2 positions. Like, again, like
Ashley Young at right back, 10 appearances this season at 37.
they
Not
need.
been terrible though.
No, it's been fine, but it's not.
I think they need
something
another
he's addressing,
midfielder.
right?
I think they need another midfielder.
Yeah.
But Boubacar Kamara's return from that injury has been
Sure,
a substantial upgrade.
But who are your midfielders then? You've got Ramsey, you've got Kamara, and
Diaz.
then I guess you've got Douglas Luiz.
Douglas Luiz, not Diaz.
Did he sign a new contract? 'Cause he was out of contract
man.
in the summer, wasn't he? And he was being moved to you, and then I think
God,
maybe
that
he
didn't
signed
happen.
a new contract since then.
They've also got
Don't know
McGinn.
that for sure, but I'm pretty sure that has happened.
And they are playing 4-4-2 now, aren't they, rather than 4-3-3 under Gerrard. So one less out-and-out central midfielder is needed in that current setup. I don't know who's got playing on the right. It's Wendy on the left. Who's playing right wing? Can't remember.
But they're
Bailey, isn't it?
Who?
Maybe.
Bailey.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah. But they're supposedly targeting a central midfielder because apparently they had a bid rejected for Guendouzi.
Interesting.
Which is an
What do you think
interesting
about
one. He was always very good for Emery. I think he'd be an interesting signing for them. Like, he obviously played with Camara previously at Marseille. Mm-hmm. We know that that's a midfield pairing that can function at a high level. I don't really see an issue with it. I mean, it depends how much money it's going to be. If it's going to be a ton of money, go and get 2 guys for half the price. I wouldn't just try and do one move here, because Guendouzi, he's got some abilities that are truly, truly rare. He really does. But I think that Villa need more surgery on the squad. They're not in the position where they just need to go and get one midfielder and it solves everything.
Yeah, I agree. I really like the Guendouzi addition. I think that when he first broke through under Emery, he was like a star talent level. So I have no issue with that signing. I think I agree. If you could get him for anything under like...
Hold on. You're not going to bring up his personality, but you're bringing up my boy Rabiot's.
Yeah, but I think Unai Emery's worked with him before, so he
loves
Unai
Emery, to be
He
fair.
clearly knows how to get the best out of him. Like,
his personality's only been an issue under one coach as well. Like, Rabiot has had issues every single place he's been. Everywhere.
Well, the PSG one was the contract, right? Juventus, he's consistently played
the
regardless.
contract was him and his mum making trouble.
But that was like 4 years ago.
Juve, he made trouble as well. Like, I mean, it's happened time and time again. Trouble. Like France, it's happened as well. I mean, Guendouzi just fell out with Arteta. Arteta just didn't like it.
A little bit. Ultimately, like, if he was that problematic, he wouldn't have played 30 games a season for these people. But
he's a good player, though. That's why, isn't it?
He didn't play that for PSG. That's a problem. Right?
Should we talk about his second part of his thing here, where he's saying give academy players more minutes?
I had a little look into them, and I asked Ty Bracey as well, who we've had on to talk about Villa a few times, and he sounded out some names. It was like Tim Erogbenem, who's on loan at QPR, but he's clocked up like 1,400 minutes already this season. Bit of like a 19-year-old prodigy. I think he made his Premier League debut last season. So the fact he's getting all that game time, that can only be a good thing. Cameron Archer's obviously gone back out on loan to Middlesbrough. I think that's his 3rd loan stint now. And Jadon Philogene, attacking midfielder at Cardiff. I think these are the players that Villa fans want to see break through. They don't want to see, like, I think they're probably watching Chukwuemeka now as well and thinking, I wish we'd given him a little bit more Premier League time or held on to him for another year.
It's tough to keep hold of him though when Chelsea won it.
Yeah, so some names that we'll keep an eye on, but I don't think any of them are being like underused or overlooked, let's say. I mean, Jacob Ramsey's 2021, getting a lot of game time.
Yeah,
and academy players don't make you better.
It would also just be nice just to see and let Unai Emery have the rest of the season to assess this squad fully before dipping into the market or recalling players from loan. Like, I would just trust him to finish in that block where he's safe from relegation, probably not going to get Europe, finishing around that 10th spot. And then he's got a full season almost, or half a season of assessed squad, can look at the players out on loan. I wouldn't be doing panic business in January if I was Villa. There's just no need.
He was quite generous with minutes when it came to the Arsenal squad, wasn't he? Didn't he give a bunch of guys their debuts when he was Arsenal manager, if I remember correctly? Wasn't it like Smith Rowe? Maybe Martinelli? I don't know. But that crop of players, I think he was quite good at bedding them into the side.
Well, we bought Martinelli like the summer that he arrived.
But he was still
So yeah, I mean, he has been pretty good about that. But I also just think you have to accept everyone thinks we'll bring in academy players and the team will get better, and it doesn't. Like, Arsenal had some amazing academy players, and they were really, really good, and we were talking about them as star prospects, and some of them have grown into stars. But at the same time, we finished 8th twice in a row. I mean, you can bring in academy players, but a really good academy player is normally about a subpar, like slightly below average Premier League player. I think people really underestimate the level of the Premier League. So they can bring in some of these academy guys and give them minutes, but I don't think it's going to make them better now. It might make them better in 2 years. So that's the reason it's worth doing. But if Villa want to improve right now, I don't think they're going to bring some kid back from loan and it's going to make them amazing. That very rarely happens.
Pat, that's the perfect segue into Chelsea, who have been trying to do this recently under Graham Potter to mixed success, I would say. And obviously the mistake listed here by RR4L, Sterling and Mason Mount. He's just put them down.
He's put starting Mason Mount.
Oh,
and then
sorry.
He's put sack, and then someone else has put sacking Graham Potter.
It's so small on my screen. It's my bad.
And then someone else has put renewing Jorginho. So basically painting a picture that Chelsea fans are like unhappy with most things.
Can I just say, yesterday, we're shooting this on Friday, was absolute class. It couldn't have gone any better. João Felix red card, lose 2-1, clangers all over the back line.
The group chat was like so happy. Obviously Sam didn't say a thing, but the group chat was really, really fun. Everyone was having a great time watching Fulham beat Chelsea. Good triumphing over evil.
Almost like harder to take for Chelsea fans that he looked pretty good, Felix, before he was sent off.
He did.
I think it was 6 shots, 2 dribbles, like 4 fouls, 1 chance created in 58 minutes, and then he obviously saw red in every sense of the word. And I've got to say, when they went out to 10 men, they were probably better for like 10-15 minutes than they had been in the previous hour. But to bring it back to the I mean, wow. I love the fact that Kepa was taking a good 30 seconds to throw it out when they were desperately seeking an equaliser as well in the last 15-20 minutes of the game. But just a note on the academy boys, Lewis Hall looked like one of their better players yet again.
That's a problem though, isn't it?
Yeah, a huge problem. Hilarious that he, more so than Felix getting sent off, he has usurped the world's most expensive left back and looks much better there.
But this is the issue, I suppose, isn't it? Even he looks really good, really solid, but it's probably his mistake that cost him the game.
Yeah, but he was not being offered, like in terms of him trying to build up the ball from the back, not being offered an option, not being offered an out ball. It led him to do some rogue dribbling, which happens when you're 18 and you're a central midfielder by trade, and you've been thrown into the left back berth. But I thought he was one of their better players. Convincingly. What
do we think about this then, starting Mason Mount? Because I have to say, he's struggling at the moment.
Yeah, I really like him, but he's not been good for a little while.
I really just don't understand the role he's playing under Potter. Where's he playing in that? It's kind of a midfielder, come forward, but he's not got any ability to bounce balls off in that forward areas because Havertz.
No, but it was like widely a held opinion with all football fans that his best position was like a floating 8, and that was his role last night against Fulham. It was like him and Felix playing off of Kai Havertz, which, I mean, I have a problem with the composition of that forward line, but he was playing in familiar territory, wasn't he?
But I think when he was at his best almost, under Tuchel, was when it was almost when he was playing off the right in that front three, when he didn't quite have to do... I feel like he's being asked to do everything, especially when Reece James isn't in the side to create chances from the wing. There's nobody else in the team that can, literally nobody else who can create a chance. So when he is underperforming like now, it is just so glaringly obvious that there's a problem there. Like, I don't know, it's just...
Well, you know what we were saying about Fabinho, like if his defensive output's not elite, you notice it really quickly. I feel like with Mount, if his goals and assists, if they dry up, you start to notice the shortcomings in his game pretty quickly. Yeah, I mean, they've gone from 0.71 last season to 0.35 this season. So stock, but I just think the chemistry of that forward line is just massively off as well. I don't think I've seen him and Havertz have a good game together, and like emblematic of that was that great run that he made halfway through the game, and Havertz just dribbles it out on the left hand side.
What's he doing there?
And Mason Mount's head in hands. Like I don't know. I don't think Mason Mount's his form's a problem, but he's not the problem.
No, he's not the problem, but he's just not playing well. But then nobody other than Thiago Silva is playing well for Chelsea. That is a massive issue.
Actually, he made the mistake for the winner last night, but Kepa's goalkeeping numbers are currently the best in the league.
Yeah, but I'm
know
to believe a few, because the game against Man City about 4 days ago, before that was also probably his
Sure. I know, but like, I think that's partially a product of what Chris was saying about Hall. The team just doesn't look like it has a plan for how players are going to pass out of the back at the moment. It's far too easy to catch them out, and when some of those players can't kick the ball straight, like...
Does that come down to Graham Potter? Does that come down to Potter? Because here we have FPL DJ who says a mistake would be sacking Graham Potter. Yeah. And I think we all agree he shouldn't be sacked.
No. People clamouring for him now to be sacked, like, people that are just not serious football people.
Yeah, but he has got to improve things quickly.
Yeah.
But what if they did sack him? How about that?
I think
you can't sack him after appointing the entire Brighton recruitment team, like all of the people behind the scenes,
and you
the Brighton coaching staff, the Brighton physios, and then you sack Potter. It'd be madness. It'd be a terrible decision. But when 10 of the players...
I would love it, though.
But when 10 of the players are underperforming, the coach is going to get screwed.
I would love it. I know, but I'm rooting for it to happen.
He's now on to his,
like... Spurs.
That's bad.
He's now on like his second 11, isn't he? Like, seeing Chalobah at right back yesterday, huge. Chalobah and Azpilicueta line up together, I thought, Willian is going to have a field day here, and that did prove to be the case. I have a lot of sympathy with some of the personnel he's having to work with right now. It's such a unbalanced side. But I have every belief it will come good. We saw shades of that against Man City in the league. When they only lost 1-0, and I actually thought they were pretty good.
Yeah, they were right.
The two results since have been catastrophic for different reasons.
I tweeted some support of Graham Potter, and I want to read you out a reply from a Brighton fan.
I don't feel like you put a lot of support for Graham Potter in our WhatsApp.
No, it's slightly different.
No, but that's highly confidential.
I feel like you were extremely critical.
This is the reply that I got from a Brighton fan. Brighton under Potter, 14 without a win and 1 victory in 2020. 3 months without a win, 2021. No goals at home for 4 months in 2022. Took Brighton 18 games to score 17 goals. I believe you have been scammed into believing he was a top coach.
No, that's just
wrong. I think I totally disagree with that. But
totally selective reading.
And also
the numbers.
Brighton did that while having good underlying numbers.
Yeah.
Chelsea are currently playing badly while having atrocious underlying numbers.
But what I will say is that those chunks of winless games you can absolutely get away with at Brighton if your team's playing really well. But at Chelsea, even 3 bad results in a row,
but what we're saying
just a million times more.
And what the underlying numbers were saying is those chunks at Brighton shouldn't have happened. And everyone forgets, everyone thinks of Brighton now as this really progressive side where, De Zerbi's come in on the crest of a wave, he's doing really well. They went from Chris Hughton to Graham Potter. They went from relegation fodder to what we see them as now, and those numbers were a byproduct of that.
He played Lallana. He was playing Lallana at DM and Welbeck up front, and he was getting a tune out of both of them for a season.
I know, but
that's
now
amazing.
He can't get a tune out of Kai Havertz, and
I guess he's just.
I thought Zakaria was a bit of a problem, that injury yesterday, because I actually think he's been great last 2-3 games.
Yeah, if he doesn't play, the defence literally gets no cover.
If he's out for an extended period of time, then the midfield issues.
I think
don't care, mate. Don't care.
The funny thing is that his injury, he plays the ball to Havertz, and then it's from that move that Havertz ignores Mount. So he gets injured, and the move petered out to nothing. It's literally Potter must be watching on, thinking everything is going. I have zero control over
sorry for him, but I agree.
Anything.
Do not sack it.
Yeah, absolutely not. I agree that would be a mistake. So what's his name? FPL DJ Hammer.
Should we go to Arsenal next? Because big news today. Looks like a breakthrough's been made. Mikhailo Mudryk. Okay. I saw Fabrizio Romano saying an estimated fee of, I think it was 70 million euros guaranteed, 25 million euros add-ons, 95 million euro total package. But I'd imagine his wages are pretty tiny because he's coming out of Ukraine.
At that price point, I'm sure he'll be paid 100k a week.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts initially on that? Is it a mistake to do a 95 million Mudryk move?
I don't know if it's a mistake. I mean, he's clearly a useful player. Arsenal definitely need quality depth because they're going to have Champions League football almost certainly next season. He's got incredible tools. And he certainly, you could imagine the last 15 minutes of that Newcastle game, you bring on somebody as direct and quick as this, it would have scared people.
Yeah.
And against other big sides, if Arsenal need to beat Man City and they've got Mudryk, then you think, that's an interesting option for them to have.
Yeah.
I think it's heavily overpriced. I wouldn't pay this amount for him. But whether it's a mistake is impossible to say because it depends whether he's actually good or not. He might be really, really good. It's a mistake if Arsenal getting him this window means they don't even loan in a backup central midfielder.
For Partey.
They have to do that. That is such an important move. Arsenal have got to do everything they can right now to maximise their chances of winning this title. This one.
Yeah.
And I don't mean you don't completely spend your way into a hole, but everyone's talking about, trusting the process, and they've done that. But when you get to this point, you have to go all out for it. Because next season, Liverpool not going to be as bad as they were this year. Chelsea will spend another ton of money if they have to. United will spend a load of money and will be better than they have been. City, if they...
Haaland will be a year into it and he'll actually understand.
Well, I don't know. I have my questions about City because De Bruyne, Mahrez, Walker aging out, Foden been bad this season, blah, blah, blah. And Haaland hasn't been injured, really. So those things could be coming down the pipeline. But also, if it's a tight race until the end, even if they win it, City will say, we need to go and do some work here.
Yeah,
and Newcastle might have Champions League football with which to attract new talent. So you're looking at a season where you potentially have several rivals, whereas right now Arsenal have one rival. We've had 50% of the season. They're on track for 98 points. When that happens, you have to make sure you try and win this title, because you don't just get better like this because your players are young. Players stagnate, bad things happen, they get injured, they leave, all those things happen. So Arsenal right now should be at the very least loaning a backup 6, and I think the winger is a good move. Though Mudryk, I would say, when I've watched him, has often played on the left, and Arsenal need backup to Saka more than that, I'd say, because Smith Rowe is coming back and he can play on the left, and there's no natural fit to cover Saka in the squad. There isn't. They could play like Fabio Vieira there, they could play Marquinhos there, but neither one of those is near that level, and neither one of those has the skills that Saka has. So they definitely need to get a winger and get a backup 6 for Partey. If that winger's Mudryk, I'm fine with it. I don't really care if they overspend. It's not my money.
Yeah.
But it's about the cost of doing that.
AFC Chariot does agree with you. He says the biggest mistake will be Arsenal not signing a midfielder. I think that signing backup 6s, though, is incredibly hard. That position is maybe the most sought-after position in European football at the moment.
But you don't have to. But the thing is, they're not going to be back up for all that long because of Partey's age. Because when you look at this squad, the one place Arsenal are old, really, is in central midfield. Partey, since he's been at Arsenal, has been very injury-prone. And you don't have to go and just do something. You don't have to loan a player. If there's a guy you were interested in going for in the summer, and you maybe have to spend an extra 15 million to get him now, this is a situation where you pay that extra 15 million to increase your chances of winning the title. So from that point of view, you don't have to recruit somebody who's just willing to sit on the bench, or find somebody who's unwanted at a bigger club. You can go and get Kouadio Kone or someone a target you really want, and just overpay a bit if need be, because you have to get them now. Like, it's the now part of it that's important, because next season maybe you're a 98-point side again, but it might happen. No has happened to Arsenal so far, and some has happened to Man City, so you need to take advantage of that. If you don't, then you haven't really done your analysis properly.
Nothing else to add for me? Anything with you?
Mudryk, I mean, unjustifiable, the price tag. Versus what he's done. Justifiable in the context of, holy shit, we might win the Premier League. But then, I've said this in previous episodes, I also resent the fact that we're now in a situation where having a €100 million guy on the bench is acceptable. Because morally that feels bankrupt and wrong, doesn't it? But to compete with City, we are where we are, and we've all, championed or got excited about all the transfers they've made throughout the year, and ultimately they've led to a scenario where, Arsenal feel the need to throw that sort of money at it to bottle lightning. I've said before, like, what a tool to have on the bench. Obviously Danilo, who was Arsenal's sort of long-standing midfield target that might serve as an understudy to Thomas Partey, is going to Forest now, right?
Rejected Monaco.
For Forest. He's never been to the Midlands, I'll guarantee that.
Even he was a vague prospect. I mean, never had defensive numbers of any kind, has never had them in Brazil. So good passing range, but he wasn't going to come in and make the difference this season. There's no reason to suppose he'd be better than Sambi Lokonga, who hasn't really worked out.
Do you know what I'm thinking just now? Like, if Liverpool could go back in time and sign someone like Rodrigo Bentancur, cost 17 mil last January. He could be so useful for a lot of top sides. João Palhinha.
Nah, I don't really think he plays at a high level.
I'm not seeing he's on the ball work, but off the ball.
So let's go on to the next suggestion then. Kieran Hughes, who has butchered the spelling here of Lopetegui, but he says not backing Lopetegui. I think they're backing him massively, aren't they? They've done 50 million on a striker in the form of Cunha. They've bought in, who have they else they got in? João Gomez. They've got in Marino Lamina from Nice. They've got in, or bringing in Craig Dawson, aren't they? They're trying to get Aaron Wan-Bissaka over the line. Like, is that not backing? Man, it's just going to be like...
João Gomez and Craig Dawson. What a duo. Yeah, I think João Gomez he's like 21-year-old from Flamengo, and they've put 17 mil on him.
Sick.
So I don't think he's got an awful lot of game time under his belt. Yeah,
but they've also
Lamina's numbers have been pretty good. Actually,
Portuguese names, it's just like one of these 5 first names, one of these 3 second names.
But they've got players coming back as well, and Wolves. The midfield looks pretty strong. They've got loads of forward options now. They've almost got, arguably, maybe one too many forward options when Pedro Neto comes back. I understand that the midfield is maybe ageing out a little bit, but with Mateus Nunes,
Squad's good, man.
Ruben Neves, João Moutinho, that's a fine problem to have.
Collins and Kilman at the back.
With Dawson as a backup.
This is a good mid-table squad.
Yeah,
Bueno
and Nate Norrie at left back.
Any evidence that they're not backing him, like you've said. You've just reeled off £100 million worth of spend. They've also been linked with Aaron Wan-Bissaka, Nacho Fernandez. I think Isco is a really fun one. Even if it's just a 6-month short-term deal, he's without a club at current. I don't know, are they short of attacking midfielders? They've got a fair few central midfielders. Maybe no one that plays in that 10 space. Cunha plays as a second striker. Maybe he's going to occupy the same space.
There's no point telling them anything.
It would be fun. I love it.
I don't think they need anybody like that.
Yeah, I mean, there's an alternate take here from Totti, Gomez and Joya, who's selling Ryan 8 Nouri and Adama Traore.
They're never going to sell Ryan.
Yeah, don't do either of those.
8 Nouri, I think, should be a bigger club.
Man City were trying to sign him in the summer.
Oh, were they? Right, missed that. Fine.
And then they ended up going for Sergio. Him and Cucurella on the table, weren't they? They ended up going with Sergio Gomez.
Lol.
Let's go to the next one, which is Spurs. The mistake listed here from Andy is not giving Conte what he needs. And what is that?
What is that?
What is that?
Is that Pedro Porro? What are we talking about?
Hold on, I feel like Joe's about to lose his head.
I just don't get it. Honestly. I just don't understand. Okay, a right back, maybe he wants a different right back, but it's not as if they didn't buy one in the summer in the form of Jed Spence, the outstanding right back in the Championship, who was very solid attacking output at least. They've got 3 right backs on the books at the moment, Emerson, Doherty and Jed Spence. I know none of them are, you make the face that none of them are exceptional, but you've got to sell one first, surely, before you buy. You can't have 4 right wing backs.
And he won the league with Victor Moses playing right wing back.
Everybody's like, they need another midfielder. They've got, how many midfielders have they got in that central area? Bentancur, Basuma, Ollie Skip, Højbjerg.
A lot of similar profiles.
Must be missing one. But then where does everybody's like, bring in more creative? Where does the creative one play?
Yeah, maybe you could play 3-5-2 and you sacrifice.
But he never does.
Yeah,
he never does.
I mean, Kulusevski's only while Kulusevski's got injured or finding.
But even when Kulusevski was injured, because he never played a 3-5-2.
I think he played it once against Chelsea, maybe, and they looked pretty good. Maybe the second half.
I just don't get it. I think if you're going to sign a creative midfield, you've got to change shape, and Conte is not going to change shape.
And then you have to find a runner from somewhere else. So your right wing back has to be a runner, because you're not going to be able to play. You're going to have to drop one of Kulusevski and Son.
Well, they're not short runners, are they?
The wing back.
I did suggest. I think they are.
I think they are quite short.
Højbjerg, Bentancur, Skip. If they're not runners, then what are they?
They're not runners. How are they runners? You need somebody who's going to
Are we talking about? I don't think we have the same definition.
No. Yeah, that's why I'm talking about Son and Kulusevski. They need somebody. Okay. They need an attacking outlet. This is why I think they're looking at people like Dumfries previously. I mean, I don't think that Porro is particularly good, but they need somebody who's going to be an outlet going beyond, which is why it's weird they haven't even tried Jed Spence, who at least can do it.
I don't get it. Give him a go.
Because Sessegnon, I think, is an interesting player, but he's not fast at all. Perisic isn't fast at this stage of his career. Son's having a horrible season. Kulusevski's always injured, and the right wing backs are... None of them's really a wing back, so it's just like,
if they're going to go for a right wing back, fine, and if that's the thing that they say Conte wants and needs, absolutely fine. But then they've got to offload wing backs. They cannot have 4 right wing backs on the books. Like Jed Spence, if this is the case where they need a new right wing back, was almost a totally pointless signing. They shouldn't have even bothered, because I understand when he came in, Conte was like, it's a club signing. You are the club. Effectively, you should be saying you're signing these players for the long-term vision, but without Conte committing to a contract, they cannot buy a load of players to suit a Conte system. If Conte hasn't signed a contract in the next month and he has 3 months left, what's the point in giving a 4-year contract to Pedro Porro at 45 million euros when
it's also really overpriced?
When the next coach comes in and goes, I don't want to play a 3 at the back. I don't get the idea of backing Conte when he is not signing a contract at the club.
And just to go back to the whole he's a club signing thing. Well, if your preferences aren't working, or if Emerson Royale continues to be the chink in the armour, then at least show a willingness to give the club option a chance to exceed your expectations. I think it's that belligerence that people are very confused about. Daniel Levy's not being like, listen, Emerson's playing out of his skin, but drop this kid in.
And it's so hard you can't sign players when the manager won't sign a deal. You just don't know what you're building.
It's also not
what the future is.
And it's not like, I'm sorry as well, it's not like everything's going right and it's just like, oh, we need a right wing back and that'll help. Everyone keeps talking about their midfielders as having been good this season. Why do they give up 14 shots a game then? Why can't they stop teams playing through them? Why do they play so deep? Like, they haven't been good in any respect this season. Harry Kane is their only player who's really having a good season. Like, there've been a bunch of other guys who've been okay, but I don't know.
Bentancur when he's fit.
He's been fine, yeah. And Romero had a good start to the season. Kulusevski's played 700 minutes and has been good in those minutes. But I'm sorry, I look at them and I think you can get in a right wing back, but that right wing back might be more attacking. But they're not going to stop you giving up all those shots. I just don't. I don't really know what's going on.
I'm so confused.
I don't think Conte's doing a great job there at the moment.
Last one here is from Nwaf, and they say the biggest mistake is signing Wout Weghorst.
Maybe just to wind you up, mate. What do you think?
Is that
On loan?
Is that a big mistake?
On loan?
I don't think it's a big mistake, is it? United don't have any backup strikers, and have just bought a lone striker in. It's
And
not
he's
as
good.
if it's going to be on big wages. He's going to be on Burnley wages, which would have taken a hit when he went down to the Championship anyway, you'd imagine, or at least aren't going to be 200 grand a week. And it's what, 2 million quid? It's like, is that a big mistake? I think if he scores 4 goals, it's fine.
It's totally different from what you have as well.
Everybody knows I like Wout Weghorst a lot. I'm absolute full simulation mode that this has come around from that 2018 podcast. So yeah, I'm a backer and a believer in Wout. I think that he will outscore João Felix across the second half of the season.
Love it. Well, got 3 games on him now. So.
Huge.
Yeah, I think if João Felix
start with a hattie against
João
City.
Felix scores like 5 goals, I think Wout, and maybe not goal contributions, because I think Felix's creative output will help Chelsea.
Are you gaming the system here and including Europa League though?
Well, yeah, because we're the only team left in the Premier League in 4 competitions,
And
I
a
think
lot of goals and assists in the Bundesliga as well.
I
Like,
think
pretty
Wout
creative in the
Weghorst
Bundesliga.
will outscore João Felix across the second half of the season, and this is going to be clipped and made absolute meme of when he inevitably blanks in every single game. João Felix scores 5.
Future Joe, and we need to talk.
Yeah. Horrible! What a horrible
bottom of
shout
screen,
that was.
yeah.
What a horrible shout that was.
Right.
Let's do one quick fire then. Favourite January transfer so far? Wout. Nailed on, for sure.
Felix, very, very funny. Funniest so far.
Felix funniest, why? Because the red.
What else has been good? Has anyone done anything good?
Across the continent, has there been anything?
If Aubameyang goes back to Barcelona, that'll be my favourite move. That's the funny. That is amazing. Everyone involved in that is so incompetent. It's
£15 million. Just
Who's
right
the
off.
kid that's just gone to Benfica for like 15 mil? Scandinavian. I want to say his name begins with like J.
Not a clue.
I was watching highlight
No,
reels of him. I
not a
forgot
clue.
now, but I like that move.
Not
a very convincing answer.
I also still like Mateus Cunha. I think he's going to be really good for Wolves. I think even in his limited two little cameos I've seen of him so far in Lopetegui, he's looked really effective. The ball across to Raul Jimenez was brilliant.
Yeah.
Orsic
against
too.
Forest.
I like Orsic to Southampton. I think that's a fun one.
All right then. Do we want to do a personal? Or should we wrap it up? There is one down here. Matt Rees, your best show of 2022.
Yellowstone.
Oh, TV show. Yellowstone. Traitors.
Maybe Barry or the Bear.
The Bear. Ooh, there you go. All right, so that's it for another episode of Sunday Vibes. What an enthralling end to the episode that was. The energy levels clearly dipped, but nevertheless, thank you very much for watching, everybody. If you enjoyed this video, hit the like button, hit subscribe. We'll catch you next time. Bye.